The Chicago Bulls season starts tonight as the Chicago Bulls will be taking on the New Orleans Pelicans in New Orleans to kick off their 2024-25 season. I like to give you guys usually 5 predictions before each season starts, so in this video, I'm going to be giving you my Chicago Bulls 2024-25 season predictions. Before we get into the video, make sure you hit that like button if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, go ahead and leave in the comment section down below whether you agree or disagree with my predictions, and go ahead and leave one prediction down below as well for the Bulls season. I want to see what you guys are going to be predicting for this Bulls upcoming season. So to kind of go ahead and preview this video, I'm going to start off this video by telling you where I think the Bulls will finish in the standings, how many wins they're going to have for the year, and what seed I think they're going to finish in. Then I'm going to go ahead and give you my 5 predictions for the year, okay? And then after, at the very end, I'm going to go ahead and kind of explain what I personally think will be a successful year for the Chicago Bulls this year. So to start off, my prediction for the Bulls of where they finish in the standings is going to be the 11th seed. I think the Bulls are going to go ahead and put up a record of 31-51. I honestly think that this is where the Bulls are going to kind of finish around. So, you know, around, in my head, like at max, like 33 wins, maybe 34. But I can also see this Bulls team losing 28 or winning only 28 games, honestly. I think this is kind of like in the mid ground. I went ahead and kind of like went through the calendar and counted how many games I think the Bulls should win. And I only counted 27. And now that's only through 80 games, though, because the Bulls have 2 games kind of to be determined because of the in-season tournament. But so I counted 27. I then gave it an extra for the 2 games remaining, so that's 28. And then I just kind of gave the Bulls an extra 3 in my head, just due to, you know, teams having injuries, just random wins here and there. I do think that we're going to see this Bulls team kind of win some games that they absolutely shouldn't, but I also think that because they're the Bulls, they're going to absolutely lose some games that they shouldn't, right? In my prediction of what I was looking through in the counter of like the Bulls games, you know, games that the Bulls should win, I had them winning like every single game against the Pistons, but somehow, some way, the Bulls will lose 2 games against the Pistons this year when they should, right? It's how the Bulls operate. So I do think in the end it's going to even out, and I do think that this Bulls team is going to only be the 11th seed this year. I really do. Now, the teams to keep track of, because I think that it is important for the Bulls to keep their pick this year, and again, it is only top 10 protected. The teams to keep track of are the Hawks, Raptors most specifically, and then after that's going to be the Hornets, Wizards, Nets, and Pistons, okay? I will then show you my Eastern Conference standings a little bit after this, but to me, the Hawks and the Raptors are going to be the teams that are going to be above the Bulls, and those will be the teams that make it into the play-in tournament. I do also see a world where the Bulls are the 10 seed in the play-in tournament, but I actually don't think it's that like the end of the world if they are. They just can't make the playoffs if that is the case. I do think, though, that the Bulls will be better than the 4 teams of the Hornets, Wizards, Nets, and Pistons. But I will say I won't be shocked if the Hornets do somehow or have a better record than the Bulls this year. But I am pretty confident about the Wizards, Nets, and Pistons being worse than the Bulls. So kind of just overall, just look at my record prediction for the Bulls this year, 31-51 at the 11th seed. So here is my Eastern Conference. I'm sure that you guys have your own Eastern Conference, but for me personally, the Boston Celtics are going to be like kind of like the flat out number 1 seed. After that, I do have between the 2 and 4 seeds, the Knicks, Bucks, and 76ers. So kind of figure that out between those 3 teams for the 2 through 4 seeds. After that, I do have the Cavs, Magic, Pacers, and Heat. I do think that the Cavs will probably most likely be the 5 seed, but I won't be shocked if maybe the Magic take the 5 seed this year. So that is 5 through 8. Obviously, we know that 7, 8, 9, 10 are the play-in spots. So the 9, 10 spots, I do have the Hawks and Raptors taking those spots. And then from eliminated from the play-in tournament, which is the 11th on down, I do have the Bulls, Hornets, Pistons, Nets, and Wizards. If you are wondering if this is my order of who I would have, like, you know, 1 through 15, this is my order. So I do have the Knicks at number 2. I do have the Wizards at number 15. But I do kind of put them like in groups still. I wouldn't be shocked if like the 76ers are the 2 seed and the Knicks are the 4 seed. But I would be a little bit more concerned if the Knicks are suddenly the 6 seed this year. So this is just kind of like my grouping. I'm sure I'm going to be wrong somewhere. But this is overall kind of my look of the Eastern Conference. And why I think that the Bulls have actually a good shot at keeping the their top 10 pick, the protected pick this year. So in this scenario, okay, for example, I have that the Hornets, Pistons, Nets, and Wizards are the 4 teams in the Eastern Conference worse than the Bulls. So right now that would put the Bulls at 5, right? I do have, though, in the Western Conference, I think the West is extremely competitive this year. And I actually think that there's only going to be 2 teams in the West that are going to be worse than the Bulls. One is the Portland Trailblazers because I don't know what the heck they're doing. The other team is the Utah Jazz because I think that they're also going to try to not have that great of a year. I know for a fact that the Memphis Grizzlies, if they just stay healthy, they're gonna have more than 31 wins this year. They're gonna be closer to like either going 500 or better. And I actually think the San Antonio Spurs are gonna take a massive leap this year because I do have Victor Wembanyama winning the Defensive Player of the Year. And I just think that they're gonna be better than what they were last year. So I think that they're gonna actually be fighting for the play-in spot, which means that I also think they're gonna be winning more than 31 games this year. So even if the Bulls somehow do end up in the play-in tournament, like at the 10 seed, I actually think it's okay. I think that just because of how good the Western Conference is, the Bulls should be okay, but only 10 seed or better, or worse, I should say. If they are like the 9 seed, I would be more concerned about the Bulls keeping their pick, but in the end, this is kind of what I think is going to happen for the Bulls. Again, 11 seed, and then this is kind of just my prediction for the Eastern Conference. So, moving on to my 5 predictions for the Chicago Bulls this year, okay? First off, I think that the Bulls are going to be continuing their preseason success of just attempting threes, like a bunch of threes, and it's going to carry over into the year. So my prediction is that the Bulls will average 37 plus 3-point attempts per game this year. So they averaged 47.8 attempts per game in the preseason. It is preseason though, so I do think that they're not going to go out and average 47, threes per game in the regular season. Okay. And just in comparison, though, the Bulls only averaged 32 attempts per game last year, which was ranked 26th in the NBA. I think the Bulls are going to be having at least 37 threes attempted per game, probably even more than that, okay? Now, I did go look back at last year's just kind of numbers. I was actually shocked to see that the Boston Celtics were the only team to average more than 40 threes a game last year. That was really shocking to me. So that's the reason why I did kind of lower my prediction. I had initially the Bulls averaging 40, but then I did look at that. So, and then I also reminded myself, oh yeah, Josh Giddey's on this roster, as so is Nikola Vucevic. These are two guys that really don't look to shoot the 3 ball. So I did kind of lower my expectations a little bit, but I do think that the Bulls are going to jump up significantly in terms of 3-point attempts per game. So first prediction is that the Bulls will average 37 or more threes attempted per game this year. I hope this is actually going to come true because it'll be just a lot more enjoyable to watch. And I think this will come true in the end. My second prediction is that the Bulls will average more points per game than last year. So last year, the Bulls averaged 112.3 points per game. That was 22nd in the NBA last year. And I think that the Bulls are going to average more. The reason why is that they're going to be taking more threes, like I said in my previous prediction. The Bulls are going to also be playing a lot faster. They were 28th in pace last year at 96.94. The Bulls ranked first in preseason in pace at 110.3. Now, I don't think the Bulls are going to average 110.3 pace this year, but I do think that they're going to increase their number significantly from 96.94, and they will not be ranked 28th in the league like they were last year. So with more threes attempted and faster pace, I don't expect them to be top 3 in pace, but I do expect them to be, maybe in the top half of the NBA in pace this year. With all that being said, the Bulls, in my opinion, should average more points per game next season just because they're taking less mid-range shots and just taking more efficient shots. However, I want to make this clear. I do not think that they're going to suddenly, skyrocket to like 117 points per game. I think that they're going to probably just average just a little bit more points per game than last year. So if last year was 112 points per game, I'm going to say maybe 113, maybe 114 this year. I also want to point out that I think the defense will also be worse than last year. But I don't expect like a significant jump because I don't think that this Bulls team has enough shooters to make a massive leap in terms of points per game, even if they are shooting all these threes. So second prediction is that the Bulls will average more than 112.3 points per game this upcoming season, even if it's just by a little bit. I think that they will average more. My third prediction, and this is already kind of getting into controversial world, but I do predict that Josh Giddey will be a starter the entire season. I am personally not exactly happy saying this because I am predicting this in case Josh Giddey does kind of struggle. Now, I just want to point out that I think Josh Giddey will struggle at the start of the season for multiple reasons. One, he's just trying to get acclimated to the team and build team chemistry. But two, I question right now if Josh Giddey's really like in game shape. And it's not really his fault. It's just because that he has not played really basketball since the Olympic game, and then obviously he played in 4 preseason games, but he didn't exactly look great in those games either. So I think it's just going to take a little bit of time for him to just kind of get back into game shape. What I mean by that is just, it might like maybe a few games, maybe a couple weeks. Hopefully it's not longer than that. But I do think that he's going to have some struggles kind of out of the gate, and I already know that there's some Bulls fans kind of calling for Iowa to start. I am kind of in that boat already. But I'm gonna give Josh at least 25 games before I really start to call for it. 25 to 30 games I think is kind of fair. But even that being said, like, even let's say Josh Giddey comes out and has a horrific start to the season, and we're like halfway through the year and he's not playing well at all, he's averaging career low at field goal percentage or whatever, I think that this Bulls front office is going to make sure that he starts every single game, because one, they traded Alex Caruso for him, but two, they need to make a decision on him, right? The Bulls did not come to a contract extension agreement with Giddey on October 21st, which was the deadline. So Giddey will be heading into restricted free agency after this season. And for the Bulls, they have to kind of decide how much they're going to be willing to pay him. And Giddey has to go out and prove how much he is worth this season. So I think no matter how much he does struggle, if he does, again, assuming that one, he's healthy, but also he is struggling, I think he will be starting every single game. Obviously, if he goes out and plays great, then he will start every game. But even if he does struggle, I do think that he will start the entire season. However, I don't know if that means he finishes every single game. I will say Billy Donovan does love Io, and I think that if for Billy, if he thinks that he needs to have his best ball handler out there who he knows will not turn over the ball, his best perimeter defender out there in Ayo Dosunmu, and also a guard out there that can hit threes consistently and finish at the rim consistently, which Ayo Dosunmu also does all that. I think he might want to have that guy out there instead of Josh Giddey at the end of games, which might lead to some friction between Billy Donovan and the front office this season. Just saying. Now, I'm not gonna go ahead and say that's going to be a prediction for me. I'm just kind of thinking in my head, like, if Billy Donovan sees that this is not exactly a great team this year, and the front office is kind of thinking like, oh, this team should have done better this year, but they also love Josh Giddey because they think that Josh Giddey's the future, and Giddey's not exactly playing at the end of games, who knows, right? But I'm not going to go ahead and predict anything like that. But again, my third prediction is that Josh Giddey will be a starter the entire season, no matter if he is struggling. I think the Bulls front office will want to make sure that he starts every single game to get a good kind of look at him and figure out what they should pay him in the offseason. My fourth prediction is a very bold one, okay? My fourth prediction is that Julian Phillips will become a 38+% shooter from the corner three this year on minimum 80 attempts. Julian Phillips in the preseason looked really, really good at shooting the three, mostly from the corner. And this is, again, assuming that he does play most of the season. So that's why I put up the 80 attempts minimum, because I think Phillips is going to start the season in the rotation. He's obviously not going to start, but if he goes out and gets like 60 minutes per game, I do think that he will be taking corner threes a lot. And so if he plays them mostly every single game, I think he'll get to 80 attempts minimum. If you're looking at some numbers, so even last year, Julian Phillips was actually a pretty good corner three-point shooter. He shot 10 of 22, 45%, or 45.5% from last season. And then in the preseason this year, he shot 7 for 11, which is 63%. So I think that with the way that it seems like Phillips has really worked on his three-point shot, and because he's already kind of been a pretty decent shooter from the corner in the first place on, limited attempts, but I think that what we saw in preseason was pretty legit. I think he's going to go out and shoot 38% or better from the corner three spot on a minimum 80 attempts this year. I also then kind of put it down below, and this is not, my official prediction, but I do think that this would make sense where he does raise his three-point percentage to 34% or above. He shot 31.6% from three last season. He only averaged 8 minutes per game and only averaged 1 3 attempted though. So I think that he's going to raise his attempts. I think he's going to raise his three-point percentage overall, but significantly from the corner spot. And I think that's a very good thing for the Bulls. And hopefully Phillips goes out and does this exact thing this year, because that will prove that he is a legitimate 3-and-D player if he can go out and do this for the entire season. So looking forward to Julian Phillips this year and see how much he progresses. My fifth prediction this year is that Zach LaVine is going to return to being Zach LaVine, assuming that he stays healthy, and we'll see if he does get traded. But either way, even if he does get traded, I do think that he will go out and average 24 points per game on 47, 37, 80 splits. So I also am just putting this out there that for this prediction to hit, he needs to at least hit 60 games to show that he is healthy and he is playing obviously well. Okay. When Zach LaVine is healthy, though, it cannot be denied that he is still one of the most efficient scoring guards in the league today. I hope people understand that. If you're wondering about these shooting splits on 24 points per game, I have looked it up here. So 24 points per game, at least 24 points per game on 47% or better field goal percentage, and 37% or better from three. I can't put the free throw percentage, but we can just assume that they're a pretty decent free throw shooter. But for all the people that qualified for these specific stats, it was only a handful of people last season. Okay. And if you keep going down like the list for each year, as you can see, it's only a handful of people. Zach obviously did it last year. Sorry, not last year, the season prior. And Zach actually has done this for like many years in a row. As you can see in the 2021-22 season, only 3 people actually qualified for these exact splits. And then in this specific season, Zach obviously had an incredible year. So I think this just kind of shows you that I think that he is going to basically return to form. And it shows that if he does go out and do this, while he does have his flaws, he is still one of the most efficient scoring guards in the league today. And if you're wondering if this is me being nitpicky, I've gone ahead and like looked up like kind of a little bit less stats. So like I took down a point, I lowered the field goal percentage by 2, and lowered the 3-point percentage to actually under league average. If you didn't know, the league average 3-point percentage last year was 36.6. So I lowered it to 36. And as you can see, like, the amount of people actually go up, right? But even that being said, though, it's still only a handful of people that average these numbers. Like, this is still very efficient scoring from these people. As you can see, Zach is in every single one of them, if you're wondering. He actually goes back to, like, many years prior, where, like, you still see that he was averaging these specific splits in the 2018-19 season. So, basically what I'm saying is that I think that Zach LaVine will go out and have a very good year. I think he's going to go out and kind of show that he is still one of the most efficient scoring guards in the league today. I think he's going to also show that he is not a ball hog. He actually doesn't really ISO a lot, even though people think he does. But he's going to show that he can play efficient scoring offense in a more modern type system and a very like hyper passive aggressive offense. Or sorry, that's not the right words. Or an offense where they really try to move the ball efficiently and play a lot faster. Because I think a lot of people kind of question, can Zach still get his points in a more like an offense that's a little bit more unselfish, that he doesn't always get his shot every single possession, and he isn't exactly always in the action every possession. And I think he will do this, even though it's going to be a lot of other guys taking threes and a lot of other guys taking shots this year. I think he's going to still go out and do this. So either way, I think that you should hope for a good season from LaVine, whether you want him gone or you want him here. As a fan of Zach LaVine, I think it's still best to trade him. And so with that being said, I think that he should go out and have a great year to raise his trade value. So this is just my 5th prediction overall for the season. And I think it's a pretty good one. So what is a successful year in my opinion? Okay. So there's a couple things in my opinion for this Bulls team to have a successful year overall. So the first thing is that I think that for this to be a successful year, you need to lose enough games to be at least one of the worst 8 teams in the league this year. Reason why is because let's say you're ranked number 8, okay, at like you're the 8th worst team in the league this year, okay. That means that you're going to be 8th in the lottery, right? So if you're 8th in the lottery, if 2 teams from behind you, so 9 through 14, if 2 teams from behind you jump up ahead of you, right, and jump into the top 4, then you still get to keep the top 10 overall pick this year, right? So the pick is top 10 protected, which means that you would fall to number 10, which means you still get to keep the pick this year. I'm willing to take that bet, honestly. Now, ideally, you're worse. Like, let's say if they're the 7th worst team in the league this year, right? Then you can fall back 3 spots still, and that means 3 teams behind you jumped ahead into the top 4, and you would still keep the pick at number 10. But I'm willing to take the bet that if, let's say, you're the 8th worst team, like even let's say the Bulls make the play-in tournament at number 10 and then lose immediately, and so there's 5 teams below them in the Eastern Conference and 2 teams below them in the Western Conference, I think they're fine. And I think that if they then go on to keep the pick and it lands in the top 10, it's looking good. Ideally, it lands in the top 7 because I think that's where the most talent's going to be in the draft. But if you just keep it, I think the Bulls are in a pretty good spot. So you got to keep the pick this year. But then also, in my opinion, it's important for the young players that you would consider part of the core to take a step forward in their development. So I listed a couple people in Kobe, Ayo, Giddey, Patrick Williams, Phillips, Smith. I also kind of put Buzelis, but he is also a rookie, so I don't really want to, put too much pressure on him. But in my opinion, the goals are pretty different for everybody, right? So for example, with Kobe White, Kobe White had a career high in minutes last season. He obviously had a career high in points per game last season, but even though that he was honestly the second option on the team last year, he had a career high in minutes. He still averaged less points per game last year than Zach LaVine, right? And we know that Zach LaVine was playing on a bad foot. He was not healthy. And then honestly, I don't even know if he was really trying in half the games, right? So for Kobe, can he go out and average 20 points per game over the entire season, or 20 plus points per game, and keep up his efficiency while still averaging a lot of minutes? Okay, I think that's like a pretty good kind of measuring stick to see if he took a step forward in his development, or was last year kind of his peak, right? For Io, it's going to be pretty hard because I don't think he's going to start as many games as he did last year. But I think for him, it's just kind of like, can he increase his 3-point attempts and still average a very good 3-point percentage, right? For Giddy, I have said consistently that I think he needs to go on average 18 points per game this year to kind of show that he can maybe like run this team in the future. That's a step up though, especially from last season, right? So he needs to go on and really put up a pretty decent year and really increase his efficiency if he's going to go on average 18 points per game. For Phillips, I think that just doing what I predicted in my fourth prediction will just be a massive improvement from him. For Jalen Smith, I think it's all about him trying to keep his efficiency up and putting up better numbers. So we'll see how that kind of works out. And then for Patrick Williams, I know it's kind of different for everybody, but for me, my biggest thing for Patrick Williams is that he needs to go out and at least average 5 3-point attempts per game. I'm aware that he is a career 41% 3-point shooter, but if you only average 3 threes per game on 41%, it just doesn't really matter too much to me. I would much rather you shoot 38% from 3 and take 6 threes per game than you average 41% from 3 and only take 3 threes per game. So for P. Will, my biggest thing is that he needs to go out and at least average 5 threes attempted per game. I think that he absolutely should hit that easily with this new up-tempo, shoot a lot more threes offense. If he does not go out and average at least 5 attempts from 3 per game, we have a serious issue, in my opinion, on our hands. So Patrick Williams, even if you like shoot much worse from 3, I just need you to at least average 5 threes per game, because that just shows you like, hey, I'm actually willing to shoot this shot because it's a good shot, and he's not afraid to shoot that shot at any moment. So goals are different from everybody. So like I said, successful years that you keep the pick. It ideally lands in the top 7. If not, just you keep the pick, so it's top 10. And then you see some of these young players that are part of the core, right, kind of take a step forward. I don't think everybody needs to take a step forward, but ideally everyone does. And I think that will overall be a successful year for the Chicago Bulls. So what do you guys think? Do you think my predictions are, maybe too bold, or maybe that they're actually are like predictions that could actually hit? I think I did a pretty good job this year and not being too bold with my predictions, but let me know what you guys think down in the comment section down below. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Pre-game stream will happen tonight, so be on the lookout for that. And as usual, there will be a post-game stream. I'll see y'all later tonight. Peace.